Thanks for sticking with us, folks. In this final segment of our in-depth interview with Kevin McGary, we touch on the origins of white supremacy, which will shock a lot of liberals out there when they discover the actual truth. Plus, Kevin explains why the church and Christians need to take a bigger role in politics today. Welcome back, and thank you so much for sticking with us. We're going to finish up our conversation with this amazing man, Kevin McGary, the founder of Every Black Life Matters. If you've been with us so far, we've been discussing the difference between the Republican and Democrat Party, how that party specifically has been using entities like BLM, Antifa, and whatnot to do their bidding, to continue this race war. And before we went to break, we were discussing that, the race war that Democrats have created. And I heard you say something the other day that just, wow, the light bulb went on. You were connecting dots, and I'd like you to do this for my viewers, between Darwin, Marxism, Marx, and the Democrat Party. And I've heard, and also Solinsky, because all three of these names I've heard major Democrats mention before.
Absolutely.
In speeches, at college professors are using their names all the time, and it's something they're spewing to you young Americans, brainwashing them. Can you do that again for me and my viewers? Because you enlightened me big time.
Yeah, so what was interesting is I wanted to do and sort of really look at the woke movement because, you know, anybody that has a dissenting voice right now today from leftist progressivism are called castigated, and you know, gratuitous pejoratives are used to, white supremacists, racists, all of these kinds of things, right?
Ben called all of them, none of them.
Christian nationalists, all this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
So I wanted to look at the woke movement. The woke movement is an overarching, if you think about like a Trojan horse, out of the Trojan horse comes CRT, social justice, liberation theology, black liberation theology, DEI, all this kind of stuff, right? And so all of that stuff is based in Marxism. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to write this book on wokeism. I'm going to look at Karl Marx, what he believed in, all that kind of stuff. But then I really felt sort of divinely inspired. No, you got to look at who Marx was influenced by, his primary, who mentored him, right? So I took a look at Marx and Engels, their early works. All of it was dedicated to Charles Robert Darwin. I'm thinking, okay. So literally, when I started to look at Darwin's work, I took a look at his first book. His first book was on natural selection. If you continue to read the subtitle, it says, "For the Preservation of Most Favored Races." And I'm thinking, Darwin, most favored races? Why? And so I looked even further to his second book, The Descent of Man. He goes into a lot more detail. He says, look, we white, Aryan, Caucasian, Europeans, we have to protect because we have supreme intellect. We're obviously supreme to other ethnicities as far as resourcefulness. So we have to sort of protect our progeny, our heritage. And he was so committed, by the way, to protect his white supremacy that he literally married his first cousin. He knew the downstream effects for his children. He had 10 children. 7 were perfectly fine. 3 had early deaths, and they had these issues because of how close their genes were. So the bottom line is Darwin was he was so committed to supremacy. And while he said that whites are supreme, he also said blacks, by the way, you can take a look at the evolution, my evolutionary theories, just take a look at blacks. They're still trying to climb the evolutionary scale. They're subhuman, they're gorillas, they're apes, they're savages. And I'm thinking, So literally, if you want the taproot for white supremacy and racism, it is, and it's unmistakable, based on his own words, it's Charles Darwin.
And that's
the
1800s.
one that it was in the 1800s, mid-1800s. He unleashed this. Now, some people would try to argue, well, what are you talking about? We had slavery, we had all of these things. There were economic opportunists that with the slavery thing. There were ethnic stripes, there were tribalism, there was all this stuff. But we'd had no distinction for white supremacy until we have this renowned scientist declare whites are supreme. That was the first time in our history that anybody said, this is a real thing. Yeah, we are supreme, right? And so, and nobody declared that blacks are, we should be racist against blacks because they're subhuman until Darwin made that distinction. Then we saw the crimes against the slaves really accelerate, right? We saw them raping their wives and children and all that. They were already doing it, but it was gratuitous then because they said, look, this is not even human.
Because their elitist white professor told them they were subhuman.
Right. Well,
right?
Yeah,
They're
because
savages.
Because they had heard of Darwin's writings and he asserted it. So that's where white supremacy and racism comes from. It's not debatable. I mean, some people will try.
Then you fast forward to Karl Marx, and that was one of his mentors.
Yeah. So
he points to his writings all the time. Right?
Exactly. So Marx then goes to Darwin. He was mentored by Darwin. Darwin's work had a profound influence on him. He says, look, my life has changed because because they're wrong. So he imbibed, he really embraced all of Darwin's philosophies, right? So then he and Engels really press the accelerator now, and they go into hardcore Marxism and all that. His number one goal, though, he says, look, all of these, social and economic theories and all that, I don't care anything about that. I just want to dethrone God. This is Marx's main thing. He hated the notion of God. So that was his main thing. But the bottom line is, Marx put the pedal to the metal with Darwin's, sort of ideas, and fully imbibed it, right? And then we get, people like Saul Alinsky in our modern times, right? Mm-hmm. Who then is a modern day communist who look for opportunities to agitate communities. When you read his book, which was dedicated to Lucifer, by the way, Saul Alinsky's book, Rules for Radicals. But when you read his book, you see that their number one goal is to use the black community to agitate them, keep them frustrated and aggrieved.
But wait, Barack's always bragging up Saul Alinsky.
Absolutely.
So is Clinton.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Because this is a common thing. They would rather see carnage in the streets so we can come under a globalist type of an umbrella as opposed to the freedoms that we have as America.
And the black community used to be so strong on family, so strong on their faith in God, yet I feel like the Democrats have pulled them away from that.
Absolutely.
They want the family destroyed. They want no belief in God because they want them to believe in them.
Exactly.
You need them. We've given you the victim mentality. We've told you the system's racist.
Right.
Now let us, the Democrat Party, take care of you.
Exactly.
Poor, underprivileged black person.
Exactly.
Is that kind of how all this came full
Exactly.
circle?
So the whole idea is,
Wow.
if we can have a permanent class of dependents, right? Think about dependents in your own home. Mm-hmm. If you have dependents in your own home, you make the rules. And that dependent must abide by those rules or they're in trouble, right? So it's the same, the dependency is dependency. So if you have a government that says, look, I'm going to have these factions within our society that are dependent on us, we can make the rules and they're going to always vote for us. And we see it time and time again. When it comes close to voting, they agitate these communities. They start talking about, hey, that you can't vote for that person. That person's a supremacist or a racist or this or that. And they keep these communities always perpetually aggrieved. And that's what we're living through right now. Again, my book, Woke Up, which is, again, the subtitle is Finally Putting an Axe to the Taproot of White Supremacy and Racism, goes into a lot of detail, complete footnotes, all the things you need to see about Darwin, his works, private letters, everything's footnoted, fully documented, everything's there, and you could see that connection. If you are wokester today, the bottom line is, I wish it were different for you, but if you're a wokester today, you are actually a white supremacist and racist by definition.
I knew I liked this guy. My final question to you, Kevin, is a real simple one.
Yeah.
You brought up earlier in this discussion, and the one I heard you in my church, the church and politics.
Yes.
You were discussing with the COVID lockdowns, the BLM, and how woke preachers were pushing the BLM movement, pushing the COVID stuff, whatnot. But I want you one step further to take it to, should God and the church be involved in politics? Because we've been told since about what, the 60s, 50s? Separation of church and state.
Yeah.
But the country was founded on Judeo-Christian beliefs. So this was something new that I believe Democrats and the liberals brought up to, again, push God out of everything in this country back in the 60s.
Absolutely.
Can you expound on that part and why you believe that preachers and churches should be involved in politics today especially?
Yeah, so the problem that we are seeing today with all this craziness in culture, right, and all this demonism is because the church has not been involved in politics. The condition of America is the report card of the church, okay? So the bottom line is the church has been silent on these major things that we should have had some input in. We should have been running for the school boards and all these other, boards and commissions for a very, very long time, but we've been brainwashed to think, oh no, you can't bring, religion and politics. Here's the problem with that. When you become a Christian, you accept the gospel. It is holistic. It doesn't stop. It's not demarcated. In every domain of your life, you're supposed to represent God and his kingdom. Every domain. That means when we're civically involved, we are supposed to reflect God and his kingdom and his desires for us. When we accept Christ, we accept him as Lord and Savior. Quite honestly, we shouldn't have any thoughts whatsoever about voting for this person or that person, or I want a black person or a female, or I want a Hispanic. It doesn't matter. Lordship says, look, I have a master. How am I voting, master? It's his vote. We should be somewhat disconnected from the whole process. We should pray about it. It should be all biblical. And the church must be involved in politics. If we're not, we have what we have today.
I firmly agree. Kevin,
God bless you.
Founder of Every Black Life Matters, the brand new book, Woke Up. Grab it. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Dan.
Truly
Really appreciate being
pleasure.
here.